Welcome back to the Positively Jacked podcast, where we try to dish real-time strategies with regards to health, mental and physical nutrition, lifestyle, and habit formation. In addition, we want to give real-time strategy to anyone that can apply in the same day to help benefit themselves. So I'm Nate.
I'm Jess.
And just in the thick of the CrossFit Open, and we are having so much fun right now, anticipating workouts and seeing performances and seeing our own community get ecstatic. This is one of the best times of the year.
Yep, it is absolutely. And last week was the first workout, and it was short and fast, very fast.
Yep.
And this week we're now staring down the barrel of a 20-minute AMRAP.
Yep. And yet again, Dave Castro's hint makes absolutely no sense.
No, I still don't get it. I was really expecting muscle ups, like Eric said.
I was expecting. I loved Eric. One of our coaches, Eric, said that the chess piece in the video, for anybody who hasn't seen it, the chess piece was a pawn. It was the most common chess piece, and then it was on a shuffleboard and got taken out by a weight. So our theory was that the weight was going to be the thing that took the most common person out. So we thought it was a strength ladder or something to remove the common CrossFitter, aka a muscle up or something like that. And it ended up being a 20-minute AMRAP of 3 of the simplest and almost too simple rep scheme.
Yeah.
Right? It's 300 meters of rowing, 10 deadlifts, and 50 double unders, which there's nothing crazy about that workout. It's just go.
Yeah. And it's more hinging and more jumping.
That is actually something that bugs me a little bit.
I'm a little bugged. I'm not going to lie.
I am too. It was one of those ones. I understand why they're formatting it the way they are. I really love that they're making it about community inclusivity.
Yep.
But you can do that without always hinging and jumping.
Yeah. I could have done with the less jumping this week.
So. I could have done without the less hinging coming off of a back injury from last year.
Well, you already did it.
I did.
Yeah. So you got the inside.
My goal this year was to participate in the Open, and as soon as the workout is announced, be the guinea pig for the gym, go through it. I give my feedback and help with the organization of classes and stuff. And I did. And it was actually a blast. I had fun. My back did not hurt. Moved through it really well, held the pace, pushed it in the last row. Probably could have pushed it 2 rounds earlier, but I'm not trying to compete. I'm just trying to leave it healthy. So
Yep, I do it tomorrow morning. So I was going to do it tonight after work, and then 7 hours of meetings, was not going to try to tackle that. So
then you did it. You're doing it smart.
I'm doing it smart.
Don't do it stressful.
I'm smart.
It's pretty stressful. If it's stressful before you start a 20-minute AMRAP, imagine how it's going to feel 10 minutes in.
Yep. I'd rather just do it tomorrow with the group. So
on the topic of the Open and some of these workouts coming through, and the Open's only 3 weeks this year.
Yeah.
And so in the next 14 days, you're going to see a lot of people self-assessing about their fitness level, right? Okay. Whether or not they did things, especially the competitive side, whether or not they did things in the last year that helped, hurt, kept them stagnant. And it's hopefully a good time where people can reflect.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought us onto our subject for today.
Well, and it also affects people that are new and maybe doing something like this for the first time.
Yeah.
And evaluating, okay, I don't know this yet. What do I do now? Yep.
And so we decided to have it I say brief, but let's be real, it's us. Discussion on mindset. And something that kind of floats around the ethosphere of fitness and wellness in general is fixed versus growth mindset.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important topic. I think it's one that could use more light shed on it for like practical applications. I think it's easy to get into the weeds of these psychological concepts and stuff like that.
Yep. I think people throw around the term growth mindset a lot as a way of just say, be better, you know? I feel like you could just as easily say more explicitly what you mean. Hey, we need to work on this because we haven't done this yet. But a lot of times when people are struggling mentally and they don't know where to go, it's like, well, just adopt this mindset, put this tape on it.
Yeah, I think the hard part is that we've gotten to a point where I'm all for self-awareness and self-checks, but people get so bedded down on what is good to look into, what is bad to look into. But when you're talking about these particular areas, neither should be villainized. I think it's a balance. I think it's a synergy within yourself and how you apply it. And you had a really cool note in our references back into the 80s and 90s that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a child in the 90s, so maybe you remember this. There was a time back in the day when everybody was a winner. You were supposed to approach kids and their development with constant praise, just love bomb the shit out of them. And in fact, I think it was 97 or 98 parents were polled kind of about where they thought development came from and where they thought the role of school was. And it came out that parents, when polled, said that kids and people were born with all the talents and innate capabilities they were ever going to have, and that the role of this school was just to like slowly pull them out of these children. And that sounds so crazy now. And this is only 1998. And it was only a year later that Carol Dweck did like a pretty amazing study to kind of debunk that it is a conscious environment that we create. It is intentional priming and mindset and behaviors that we adopt. And that, underpinned by neuroplasticity, which is a whole nother episode in itself, we can affect the trajectory of our development.
Yeah.
Till we die.
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible.
It's an awesome curse and responsibility to a point, because
right.
in brief, it's all on you.
Right. But I mean, I remember, and we were talking about it just before we got on this call, like we're both kids who grew up thinking that we were terrible at math.
Mm-hmm.
I failed out of college math 101 twice. I had to take it twice before I could get into college algebra. And it's because I was just bad at math. I can't do this. Had no bearing on the environment or the applications or the teachers using methods that could have been more helpful to me. I was just bad at math. And my mom was bad at math. It's obviously genetic. So
I was told I was bad at math in middle school.
Yeah.
And it was simply because I did not, for anybody who doesn't know this about me, there was a lot of moving back and forth, all this other stuff. Essentially, between the ages of 5 and 12, Nate was trying to figure a lot of craziness out. But having said that, in middle school, I absolutely hated the constant berating of interacting in a class where a formula was taught and you just had to sit there and repeat like a drone, just over and over. It might have been like a speak and say back and forth between the teachers. So I was told I was bad at math because I tuned out. I didn't like it. I wanted to work on it on my own. And the teacher had given me a few quizzes, just C's. And they're like, I just don't know. I think you might just be bad at math, and that's okay. And I always remember feeling kind of odd that a teacher would say that to a 12-year-old. But lo and behold, when I get into college, I take statistics, first semester, freshman year, top grade in my class. And then I switched schools, and on the note of college algebra, I had college algebra, and our teacher was a TA for the computer sciences department. Mm. I had 3 notebooks full of notes from her because she did not know the subject she was teaching. And so about 75% of our class failed, and we all had to retake it. And so I realized that it was never that I was bad at math. If I was going to learn math, I had to do it my way. And lo and behold, next semester, different teacher, TA for the math department, got a good grade. It was one of those things where I never realized how bad that particular example bedded down to where I steered clear of certain things because I had this inherent belief in myself that I was just genetically bad at math.
Oh yeah. I was told I was not going to be good at sports because I couldn't play baseball. I'm terrible. I can't hit anything with a bat other than like violently to commit a felony. So I cannot hit a small object with a bat. I can hit any amount of other objects with a bat. And so I was always told, well, you're not going to be an athlete. Fitness isn't your thing. You can't do that. So like, again, isn't it amazing that like something so early in life shaped how many decisions thereafter?
Yeah, and unfortunately, decisions made for you, not by you.
Yeah. Yeah. For you.
Right.
So, in Carol Dweck's study, they had two groups of kids, and they gave two types of feedback, right? It was the idea of intelligence-based feedback, meaning they're labeling something. You are so smart. You are so capable. You do this so well. And another set of kids was given praise around effort. And lo and behold, the effort-based children, when given a more challenging problem to solve, had higher scores.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the second layer of that, obviously, is they gave the same feedback to each group again and then presented another problem. And again, the effort-based children persisted and solved the problem at a higher rate of success. The intelligence-based group underperformed and in some instances lied about how they did, which is, again, just shows that when you tie performance to identity, how limiting that can be.
Very much so. And
right?
It also undermines what we talked about at the very start of this episode, was that it is on you, right? Mm-hmm. It's on you to do what you can with what you have. It's not in you just to be expressed out of your genetic lottery per se. Now, there are factors there. Don't get me wrong. They're high performing athletes and tissue differences and all this other stuff. But just because you have it doesn't mean it's going to get expressed, and definitely doesn't mean it's going to get expressed as optimally as it could.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, let's just give a, we've tossed around growth mindset enough to probably start a drinking game. What is growth mindset to you?
Growth mindset to me is more about adaptability than anything. It's understanding that when you're looking forward or you're trying to move forward in more our space of positive psychology for betterment, you need to be prepared and adaptable to having things challenged that you might have had a preconceived thought about. And you need to be okay with that in ways that both you might anticipate, but also ways you might not. And that happens a lot with athletes where, the standard one for our industry with CrossFit is you don't get better at CrossFit by just doing CrossFit when it comes to the sport. And don't get me wrong, I love CrossFit. I think GPP is a great thing for most populace, all this other stuff. But when you look at it from the sport angle, there are elements that you can test. There are elements you can build. And for some people, that challenges that notion of just doing more volume or doing more of something that they're bad at in order to get more proficient at it.
Right. And so then a fixed mindset. Yeah, I agree entirely. Right. I live in a somewhat different world, so I think about all types of performance. Yeah. But reversely, then a fixed mindset is the idea that those things all stay stable, relatively stable, or fixed. They don't develop past a certain point where they are inherently supposed to be.
Yep.
So, I thought a really good note. I actually was re-listening to Carol Dweck this morning on an education podcast, and she had this really great point that, like, while many people associate mindset with how they approach and handle situations, the reality is a lot more nuanced. That mindsets aren't just the outward behavior, they're internal frameworks we use to process and interpret the world around us. So just like bias is a way to simplify things for us, a mindset includes kind of this collection we build every day of this external information, internal signals we tell ourselves, and these help simplify the complexity.
Yeah.
That we encounter every day. So
I like that a lot.
Right. I think people just throw it around like, well, just put this mindset on like this shirt and suddenly you're a different person. And it's like, well, that's
right. No, it's a chemical mixture of a lot of things.
Right. You can't just detach your ego from your body and put on a different shirt. It doesn't work that way.
I love that. You can't just detach your ego from a different body and put it on a shirt. We should put that on a shirt.
We should. My ego is a Hawaiian shirt today. But I think you hear that so often. It's just like, you need to have the mindset of this, or leave your ego at the door. And it's like, so not that simple.
Well, and what you just said of how people phrase it, right? You need to have this mindset. That completely undercuts the idea that a mindset is unique.
Yeah, completely.
Right? Like that just guts the whole path of life that brought me to this moment for you to challenge me. I'm all for challenging, but to say that my mindset that got me there needs to be gutted and then I need to adopt this in that instant, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it completely disregards like I just said, all this body of experience and thought and reflection and adaptability you've already built.
Right.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about our areas of emphasis, but I really like, before we got on the call, talking about perceptions between fixed and growth mindset, unpopular ones, popular ones, and just kind of comparing the two. Because I think just like with somebody forcing like, hey, you need to take this mindset, a lot of people think about one growth mindset one way and fixed mindset the other way, and almost at odds with each other.
Yeah, that it should be, you should constantly be running away from fixed mindset.
Yeah, which we had talked before, but the note that we had was that fixed mindset gets stuff done.
Yeah, a lot.
It really helps moving forward. Like, it's necessary if you have a fixed mindset, let's say, about becoming the best athlete in X sport or the top designer for your team, and you have to have certain elements of that fixed, because if you didn't, you would get derailed so quickly and so easily.
Yep. And we didn't want to dive into it this episode, but stress enhanced performance, where what happens when stress happens, our perceptions get very, very narrow. We get very, very focused. That's another example of, when we're working on something really hard, we can't have this flexible attitude of, it'll just be fine, I'll adapt, you can have it. Like, no, we get really narrow and we focus and we become more fixed in a stressful situation where performance really matters.
Yep.
So I think that's like the first misconception that people have around growth mindset, is that it's always at odds with fixed, and that you should avoid fixed at all costs, that growth is the only productive way to live.
Right. So the analogy I'd used earlier, and I like to bring back, is that mindset in general is a blueprint, right? Yep. So growth mindset means that you're taking edits in on your blueprint. Fixed mindset means you're ready to build.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy.
Well, and I appreciate that. But to me, that's probably what most people could resonate with, because a lot of time when you think of fixed mindset, you think of immovable. Yep. And it's quite the opposite. It's just that you have refined your path to a particular route. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have checks along the way to be informed. And again, growth mindset is being adaptable, accepting those challenges, being ready to not necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater, but adjust this wing or adjust this front entry, kind of these small little adaptations throughout. So they're synergy. They're a really good synergy too, if you understand both sides of them, and your perspective on them is that they're both can serve you.
And I like that you really talk about process here. And the way you explain that brings about another point, and it's that I think a lot of people think growth mindset is, okay, I looked at the definition, that's me, that sounds like me, I'm going to check that box and then I don't have to think about it anymore. I have just always got a growth mindset. Hawaiian shirts forever. Like, I'm going to ride this shirt analogy till I die. I
want to get you a Hawaiian shirt.
And that's not the case. This is a lifelong endeavor of encountering situations and then evaluating and adjusting your trajectory to continue to exist in a growth mindset. or identifying the opportunities where we have to live in a fixed mindset to maybe maintain confidence or focus or contentment. So,
or get to the next appropriate time to challenge and look at growth mindset again, right? You gotta have those benchmarks. You can't just freeform it, right? You can't just open up and be like, I'm going west. It's like, that could be a gamble.
Eventually there might be water.
Right. I might narrow it down a little bit differently than just the compass.
Yeah. But I think just the idea, I think people, I've been working a lot on competency-based professional development in my day job. And so we've got this list of skills and people are supposed to rate themselves, and then it's validated by a leader. And so there's things like develop rapport and executive presence, and growth mindset almost seems like one of those terms where it's like, oh yeah, that's me. And then you click and it's like, and fix it and forget it.
Yeah.
And it's not. It is absolutely an everyday thing. And I think the other thing I see people apply, or say too much when it comes to growth mindset is like, oh yeah, you need to have a growth mindset and just grind harder. This is not like a thing where we push ourselves to the limit all the time, and that's called growth mindset.
Right. And I love the almost like oxymoron there. I don't even know if I'm using that right. You have to grind harder to have a growth mindset. It's like a growth mindset is so flexible. What does that mean to grind down harder? Like it seems so mixed.
That it's like, that bro culture of like work harder, F your feelings. Like I feel like growth mindset is sometimes just lumped into that cart too, where it's like, well,
the harder you hustle, the more you grow.
The hustle culture, where it's like, no, growth mindset's actually about like sustainable pace for learning and growth and celebrating along the way, and always about effort and consistency in the elements that you can control. It's just, good Lord.
Hustle culture gets a lot of play nowadays.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, again, grab whatever buzzword you can, and I'm that.
I'm not a fan of barrel forward no matter what.
No, never.
I think that there are plenty of times where I'm all for moving forward and having a fixed mindset about certain things.
Yeah.
But the world doesn't bend to your will. Right. And so with that in mind, you got to be ready to stop, okay? Bringing in the stop method, and reassess. That's the whole point, is that not only are you fixed in your charter, but you're willing to adapt as the way goes along. And just understanding that little bit of ebb and flow is a way to get way more progress out of it than if you were just to put the blinders on and move.
Yeah. Your principles are sound. Your methods are flexible.
Hey, that's our shirt. We are gonna have a Hawaiian shirt that is jacked on the front lapel, and then on the back is what you just said. Please, for the love of God, write that down, because that right there is our coined back of a t-shirt.
Oh, I got more. Ryan Holiday had a really good one I saw the other day. It was, the only real failure is abandoning your principles.
Ooh,
and I was like, solid, my man. That was solid.
That's a solid one. Yeah.
That hit right at the right moment. And along that, I think, we said it was a journey. Like, implementing a growth mindset isn't like I'm snapping if you can't hear me because of noise canceling, but it's not instantaneous. Like, it's not like, if this, then this. If I do this, I'm going to PR my Fran time next week. Like, it doesn't... This isn't the thing where it's like game changing. This is going to fix everything. This is like a journey over time. The day-to-day isn't going to be felt.
Right. Well, that kind of ties back to our goal setting session episode, was how a lot of people set the goal of like, I'm going to PR a snatch. And for months they will work snatch pulls, pocket snatches, overhead squat strength, and then they don't PR.
Yeah.
And they're like, that whole thing was a waste. And it's like, no, not at all. It's, you said you wanted to PR your snatch. That meant, in the face of adversity and challenge, that's where the growth mindset comes in. And you just got challenged. But everything in the strength and conditioning textbook said this would build my snatch PR. It's like,
Yeah.
Apparently it didn't cover everything, and that's okay. Because if you really want it, if you really want to achieve that goal, then you will grow and adapt and then fixed mindset again. You are still on the path of having a PR mentality, if you will.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about it again in correlation to a project I'm working on, and I was looking up research just to bolster, and I ended up back at Carol Dweck, who in some later work they were implementing growth mindset intervention in schools, because obviously, as we've discussed, like that would be a really great point to try to help kids out before they end up like us, apparently bad at math for life. And and they said with any single intervention, you can really only expect 2% improvement at one time. Like, so for any period that you've decided to implement an intervention, 2% is about the maximum you can expect. And we're obviously building out goals for the year. And somebody was like, well, on this project, I'm going to put my measure down that I'm going to get 15% improvement. And I'm like, that's aggressive. And don't bet your bonus on that.
Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you land among the stars.
Yeah. In high performance culture, that could be severance. I don't know. Like,
we said that with certain styles of programming all the time.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we used to watch people, I won't say the obviously program houses that built it, but like, it was like games day programming volume on a Tuesday.
Full Olympic weightlifting training, full gymnastics training, and conditioning Metcon training, totaling in, I believe, if you did the full sessions, it was roughly 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Which I'm not crapping on any programming camp that has 4 to 6 hours worth of training, but I would hope that it's written and programmed, not templated and plugged and played numbers. I hope it's accountable to the populace that you're working with, like directly to the populace, not just a blanket.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
My bones remember it.
Yeah. Or what was it? Like somebody said we talked a lot about minimum effective dose and like how people could see results from even just working a superset of like 3 movements for 4 rounds, like with dedicated focus. I don't remember the study on that. Like dedicated focus versus just, how much can I squeeze in this hour?
Right. It was, just saturation of time as opposed to deliberate time.
Yep.
So,
and what that meant when you were mentally tuned into what you were doing as well and thinking about your muscle contractions, how that affected performance outward.
I am, side caveat, a book that I loved reading probably about 8 years ago was The Biology of Belief. And how that could have substantial effects on outcome-driven results. And it's an interesting thing. I don't think it's everything, but boy, if you believe in it, it is definitely a thing that will get you further.
I mean, that's what this is. Growth mindset is really a belief system.
Yeah.
It's not just the idea of, these things are inherently true. They live over here. You have to internalize and believe that you are capable of these things and that you can adapt and achieve things with consistent effort and time. Like, if you don't, then this isn't going to work.
That ties into, I believe we talked about doing a separate episode of just self-assessment and asking yourself some challenging questions that, things you possibly believed about yourself prior to, and challenging those on purpose and seeing where the root cause of that came from. And then realizing, wow, you might've been holding on to a notion about yourself for 20 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think, kind of diving into the application side of this, there are some questions you can ask, and there are some things that you can do to adopt growth mindset. And they may seem simple, but what goes on, quote unquote, behind the scenes and internally, if you've read anything about some of the studies on brain activity in response to failure or stress, like it's actually really complex and highly developed.
Yeah.
So, like you said earlier, the stop method. The stop method is like my advice for everything.
It's one of those ones that's like a master key to a lot of stuff, and hopefully
Yeah.
you hope that it introduces more. But it is a great first step.
Yeah. Second to sleep as a cure for everything. Stop mindset for me is like the thing I use probably all day, every day.
Stop, sleep, hydrate. I feel like
Yep.
so much can be.
Is something wrong? Identify the 3.
Yeah, I mean, prove it wrong.
You really can't.
No.
I mean, it's there in almost everything. So, the idea that the stop method applies to everything is just pausing and thinking about things that you're feeling. And so there's some questions you can ask yourself, as you start to evaluate kind of the beliefs you hold about yourself. And it's like, what have I told myself I'm good or bad at? And write those things down. And then why am I good or bad at those things? What do I believe about how I got here? Why am I not good at other things? And where did that come from?
Yeah.
And that goes to what you said about teachers. And that's not that I'm like pointing anything on that, but like we hear so many messages as children from so many different people that we don't have the full context to understand.
Right. And one of my favorite things in assessments, we have our no sweat intros, we have our goal setting sessions, is when anybody brings one of those limiting beliefs in themselves to the table, I really try to hound down on the why. And mainly because you'd be amazed at what people will believe about themselves without a lot of a base. It's just one of those things that whenever it pops up, their immediate reflex is to pull them away from that potential. And, we've talked about it with the math thing, but like people feel that about so many different things: body parts, image, proficiency with things other than math, proficiency with things in previous sports, post injury is a huge one. There are so many times people will have an injury or something that happens, and a medical professional will tell them, you'll never do X again. Yeah. And while I'm not trying to say that, that you should challenge the medical advice like without fail, there are definitely times that they can be wrong and significantly wrong. And so if that's the case, if there's even the potential of that, then it's up to you. It's your own kind of drive to do that, or find somebody that can help you look into it a little bit deeper.
Well, and I think that's the key to this. Like, if you're asking yourself these questions and you're starting to have a dialogue with yourself or with the help of a coach, really don't let yourself off the hook of identifying the true reason. And then that immediately opens the door for what you could have done differently. Right? Like, I am not good at music because I never pulled the guitar I've had for 10 years out of the closet. So what could I do about that? I could pull it out of the closet. And then that gets to the goal setting discussions we've had previously of like, okay, well, if I want to get good at guitar, what would I do about that? And then if you're not good at something, just applying the word yet to it.
I love that. Oh my God. I do that every day.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. Like,
yeah.
Hey, do you want to use that 50-pound dumbbell? I'm not strong enough
yet.
And then they're just like, and it's like, well, and then when you say yet, you introduce the possible path. It's like, well, how do you get stronger for that dumbbell? It's like, well, what dumbbell were you going to use? 30 pounds. Okay, well, that's about 20 pounds off of 50. What do you think about 35 or 40? Oh, I haven't used that one. It's like, well, yeah, you just told me that you default to the 30 pound. So just because you haven't done it doesn't mean you can't. So why don't we test it out today? And then it just opens that up. It's like, oh my God, you're right. It was just a reflex to go for that.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally the story of last week with 24.1. Went to do it at CrossFit Weddington here. And there's a great guy there named Andy. He listens to this. So hi, Andy. And he was going to default to the scaled workout with 35 pounds. And then we just asked him, have you ever thought of trying 50? Well, no, I always grab the 35. Well, let's grab 50s. Let's take it for a spin. And he just whipped it up there like it was no big deal. He had always just defaulted to scaling the weight. He did he got into the 9s, the second set of 9s.
Yeah.
Never having done 50 before.
Yep. And to kind of nail it home, I would love to point out that's not a failure because he didn't finish that workout. The goal for him to do the workout was finished, as well
Yep.
as the goal of using a 50-pound dumbbell in a workout.
Yeah, it's just an application of, have I thought about this differently lately?
Yeah.
Have I considered that I could do more today? And it's not, well, I did, and it's not saying that's forever. Maybe next week he uses a 35-pound dumbbell for something again. Like, it's just the idea that you consider if or why or yet. I mean, there was a whole school system that adopted a different grading system based on the concept of yet, and it totally changed the way kids thought about their grades and their performance, because everything was not yet if they just hadn't done it yet.
Yep.
You're not done yet.
No. And a lot of people think that, don't get me wrong, that there are certain things as we age, as we progress, that do stagnate, that do kind of get set. I will never have straight femurs. I can say goodbye to that. But
great example.
I'm just saying, like, if I wanted to have straight femurs at any point, it would be a horrible pain for many years, and I'm not going to do that. But that's not a reason for me to not pursue certain things.
Yeah.
And so, and being welcome to change, aka growth mindset. Yeah, certain things are fixed, but certain things can be changed, and it's just that ebb and flow back and forth with those self checks that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and I think embracing that challenge, but don't just close out the idea of listening to your fixed mindset.
Yeah,
I feel like there's so much data and feedback that we can get. As you know, we're CrossFit. We love data. We are just literally baked in data all the time, and that data is still important, even if it comes from fixed mindset in a situation where you're maybe trying to get away from that.
Yep.
So
I love the perspective we have because it reflects so strongly in the coaching and the work that we do with people.
Yeah.
And yeah. I feel like there's a lot of good change engine facilities that are like this. That's one of the first things that drew me to CrossFit, was that it challenged the notion of what an athlete was. And what an athlete, when I found CrossFit, was it was anybody who was choosing a physical means to better themselves. That's all it was. Like, I didn't have to express it in a sport. I didn't have to express it for anything other than that 1 hour class that you would go to.
Yep. And it was your class.
Yeah. And it's one of the reasons why we're here doing a podcast.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
All right. So if we were to sum this up a little bit, we like to give real-time strategy, right?
Yeah.
We always, well, not always, but very often go to the stop method. Right?
Yep.
Just creating true growth mindset, giving yourself the space to pause, acknowledge where you're at, where you want to go, what's worked, what hasn't, challenge some notions. And, you know, you covered quite a few of the questions, but just to recap, I'm like, what have I told myself that I'm good or bad at? Why am I good or bad at certain things? Why am I not good at other things? What things do I want to be good or better at? And where do they come from? What's the motivation of them? Because that in itself, I don't think a lot of people even realize how long they go without asking those questions.
Right. And then, you know, when you're working through that stuff, really be cognizant of the type of feedback you give yourself. You know, are you giving intelligence-based feedback where you're applying labels to yourself that are fixed on your performance and tying your performance to your, you know, your character?
Yeah.
Or are you giving yourself effort-based feedback? Use your verbs, people.
Use your verbs. Another one for the shirts.
Use your verbs.
Another one for the shirts.
Yeah, use your verbs.
Oh, man.
You know, you control your, you know, above everything else, you're in control of your effort and consistency. That's what drives progress over everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot more in your power and responsibility than you think. especially when it comes to some things that you might believe about yourself that got preset quite a long time ago that you didn't realize that was not your choice.
Yeah.
And also really understand that just because you are assessing your mindset, whether it's growth or fixed, it's not going to be a miracle worker. The effort and tasks and setting yourself up and reaching out to others and a lot of these things, like that's what an effective learner and executor will do, is understanding what they lack and try to find a path to help bridge that gap. Especially if it's something that really you sit down and take time and self-assess and it's important to you.
Yeah. Reach out to people. I feel like bouncing, if you're seeing people that are doing something you think they're doing well, like reach out.
Yeah. You might
get
free advice.
You might so much advice. Look at why we're friends. We did exactly that.
Yeah.
And we're still here.
We're still here, dang it. We're still here
creating Hawaiian shirts that say mindset is not a miracle worker. Right. That's our next shirt.
I like the principles one. What was it? It was refine your I'm blanking on it now. That's why I wanted you to write it down, because it was
refine your methods, not your principles.
Yes, that is it. Oh my God, it's so good. It just hits. Like I see you in my head dropping the mic after that. It's so good. Refine your methods, not your principles. Oh,
what a good episode. We've had a good talk.
That was a good one. I think it's so timely, and I think just because we're in the CrossFit space and this is the season, but also I really hope this finds anyone that's got that where they just feel a little stagnant. Right. Yeah. Whether it's fitness, whether it's wellness, whether it's, going into summer, trying to find some sort of purpose for certain times, or school. It's just one of those times where it's, it's okay to sit back, stop, think. Like you're in the driver's seat way more than sometimes we give ourselves credit for.
We're immersed in a constant environment of feedback, and we give ourselves feedback. We hear it from other people, and it's important to evaluate that feedback.
Absolutely.
And separate it from our character a little bit and really see if we can turn it into something more positive.
Yep.
So
refine your methods, not your principles.
There it is.
So good. All right. That does it for this episode. Stay positively jacked.